Hi everyone, my name is David. Thanks for watching today's video. Today's video is about trauma bonding. I have a weekly question and answer video I do every single Monday. Sometimes I take people's questions and make an entire video about it. I think it's necessary sometimes to do that. A bigger, more detailed explanation for their question. So last week I got a question from Victoria from the Bay Area, United States. Hi Victoria. And Victoria's question is, David, I met my ex-narcissist when I was 16 years old. I remember the night I broke up with him about 3 a.m. I could see my dad's van on fire. I never tried again to break up with him. Is that trauma bonding? And I don't want to necessarily tell you, no, it's not that you and your boyfriend didn't bond over the trauma of your father's van being burnt down. And I think your question more is about that I didn't break up with him and that we stayed together, things like this. That in itself is what would explain a codependent relationship. If you didn't want to be with him, if you guys had problems and you didn't fix them or end the relationship, that's kind of the explanation of a codependent relationship, but not necessarily what people are speaking of when they say trauma bonding. They're not necessarily talking about a single incident like that. It's more over time. Bonding over trauma. Bonding together two people with their trauma, their shared trauma, and also their own traumas. So I want to get into that and kind of give you guys an example of what this is. And this is a very, very, very big example of this. This is a very detailed example, very good example, I think, of trauma bonding. Not necessarily the only example. It doesn't have to be this detailed, this involved, this much history. But I think explaining this example might help you guys understand better, for those of you who don't, or give you guys a better understanding of trauma bonding for those of you who do know what it is. So take two people. This will be a romantic relationship, okay, in adulthood. Two people that had childhood traumas and, very important, neglect. This would be emotional. I'm going to use the emotional example. I'm going to use two people who grew up in a household with, let's say, narcissistic parenting. Not narcissist exactly, but narcissistic parenting, where the parents' focus and attention isn't on the child and what they need and what they want and their feelings. It's more about the parents and their needs and their feelings and what they want. That is emotional neglect to the child. So you have two people raised with this emotional neglect, which is abuse and is traumatic on its own. A child not receiving what they need over long periods of time does cause trauma, okay? So they grow up looking for this void to fill because in childhood they didn't receive, very important, unconditional love. The only time we receive this in life, and mandatory to receive this in early childhood. Unconditional love, no matter what. Two people did not receive this, and what they didn't find and what they didn't get in childhood, they stray all the way into adulthood looking for this unconditional love. Two people meet each other. They identify almost immediately with each other through their own past neglect and trauma. We do this, okay? A lot of you guys who dated and married these disordered people, narcissists, borderline sociopaths, there is some kind of identification you guys have seen in them. Their own suffering. They need help, you need help. Things like this. And there's also a familiarity. So a family, right? A familial, let's say, familiarity. So there's something familiar in each other that you experienced in your own family. Each has a void to fill. Because if your parents don't love you unconditionally, it's almost given that you will not love yourself unconditionally. And what you didn't receive, you want to get from someone else. You're looking for that. Without understanding, we give it to ourselves. You're looking for somebody else to unconditionally love you. And so is the other person. Both of you never received unconditional love, emotional neglect. Okay? Codependent people who are raised in these codependent families, it feels like that at first. So when these two people meet who didn't receive what they needed as a child, and they believe they found that when they find each other, because the hormones rise up like it naturally does when two people really like each other and meet. But this is more intense. It's more. Okay? It's more. More serotonin, more dopamine, more oxytocin. And this feels amazing. And the rush into the relationship, the telling each other how much you care about each other right away, no boundaries, waiting, or not waiting, but going too fast and rushing right in. This hormonal change is intense, and it might feel like what we're looking for our whole life, unconditional love. I love you so much. I love you no matter what. I love you more than anybody. Okay? Sometimes we call that love bombing. All right? Soon attachment will begin. And a lot of this is two of people sharing their trauma stories. So no boundaries, going too fast. A big part of this is both people in the relationship sharing too much and too fast. Two people not healed from their childhood trauma is always in the forefront of their brain. They will express this, and this comes out in relationships. This false trust. I found someone that loves me unconditionally. I trust them now. I can tell them everything. These shared traumatic stories would be the beginning of a trauma bond. As the relationship progresses, two people start to attach, or at least one starts to attach. Instability begins. Any adult who had a childhood that was neglected are emotionally unstable relationships. This is one of the familiar parts I was speaking about. The relationship is unstable. Fears may play in, fear of abandonment, fighting, arguing, not learning how to communicate effectively. And the relationship, the instability, regulates our hormones up and down. I speak about this a lot. Sorry to be repetitive to those people who watch all my videos. But those happy, feel-good hormones start to rise and fall. I love you. I hate you. I want to be with you forever. And you guys break up. And then you get back together and they go back up. And you're the only one in my life. And then all of a sudden, there's triangulation. There's somebody else in the relationship. And stress hits. And all those hormones go back down again. Then you guys, whatever, make up. And they just go up and down, up and down. This is what an unstable relationship means. Okay? And this begins dependency. So you've got this relationship where you shared your traumas together. Start bonding, start attaching. Fears play in. The instability of the relationship makes us dependent, like drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling. Then the trauma begins. Okay? You have one partner abusing the other. That's a real trauma bond. Narcissistic person abusing their partner emotionally or physically, psychologically, financially, sexually. And a bond occurs between the two who are sharing trauma together. Also, you add in these relationships where people are sick of hearing it. They're sick of seeing the drama. You're telling them what this person's doing to you. And over time, since you're staying in it and not leaving, it's just repetitive and people don't want to hear it anymore and they start pushing you away. Or we don't want to say it anymore. We are ashamed and feel embarrassed and don't want to talk about a relationship anymore. And a dependent relationship is just like any other addiction. It becomes number one in our life, and it might also be the only thing that matters in our life. We might start throwing away our relationships to the side ourselves, not maintaining them, not strengthening them, not even having contact with them. An abuser will also isolate their victim and do it themselves. So here you have two people attached and bonding over trauma and becoming dependent with the hormones. And isolated, can't turn to anybody, can't have support. This relationship is codependent now and continues without fixing problems, with intermittent reinforcement. There's also a phenomenon called the Stockholm Syndrome. And that plays a lot into this, where we become dependent, bonded, addicted to our abuser. Stockholm Syndrome is, it actually refers to an incident in Stockholm, Sweden, where bank robbers took people hostage in a bank and kept them there over a long period of time before they ever got everybody out. Over this many-day fiasco, the victims, the hostages, started cooperating and helping these bank robbers. And they call that Stockholm Syndrome, where we fall in love and become addicted and dependent on our abuser being abused. So that is what I think is a really thorough, extensive, long example of trauma bonding. In short, two people in an abusive relationship together that doesn't end over time. That's trauma bonding on the short definition. Anybody else who has questions about this, please ask me down below in the comment section. I'll answer everyone's questions, and I'd love to hear everyone else's stories and examples of trauma bonding, your own perception and your own definition. Please, let's talk about it down below. Thank you, all of you. And Victoria, I hope I answered your question. Please let me know, and please keep asking questions. Thank you, all of you. Love yourself first. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.